steps are based on hearing your inner voice, really learning to attune inside, going beyond the obedience, what do you think? It's what do I think? What do I feel? What's true in my heart? What gives me vitality and energy? That creates a full and rich human being, and that meets the models of what psychology and human development people say is a whole grown-up human being. When you think about empowerment for yourself, just what comes to mind?
For me, it's speaking my truth and finding my voice and honoring that and not taking responsibility on for others.
It's pretty simple for me. I think it's taking my power back. Learning how to say no and not having to take responsibility for the person's feelings that I said no to.
I get to question any theory that's presented to me, and I get to ask who wrote that theory and who benefits by it. And if it's not me, I don't have to buy it, and I don't care who wrote it. What happened to us that then we used addictions and why we used them.
I was a child who was raised with abuse, sexual, physical, emotional, and neglect. Nothing was addressed. And all the adults around me were all drinking and saying life was hard, get used to it. I wasn't even allowed to think.
I was sexually molested, and at a very early age, I had to learn how to cope with feeling ashamed. I tried smoking. I remember my first cigarette was when I was 9. I remember one time waking up in the middle of the night and eating cake behind a Christmas tree, for crying out loud. I remember that, even as a young child, coping with food, trying to comfort myself with sweets.
My brother, he was the hero of the family, so he got the education. I felt like I was flailing all the time.
My uncle was very abusive in many different ways, so that's how I learned abuse. And unfortunately, through my life of growing up, I carried that abuse on into my adulthood to where I started to abuse my partner.
And I think the use of drugs and acting out in their teenage years often was what kept them from committing suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it may look crazy to an outsider, but when you're that much in pain at home and you feel that alone, boy, that drug or that sex feels awfully good for a little while.
As a lesbian, I really grew up in this culture that taught me that it wasn't okay, and I felt so different. And this model was the outlet for me in terms of being heard, being witnessed, creating a safe place. The first group that I did with 16 Steps was a group with lesbians, and we got to hear each other out and really witness and hold a safe space with each other.
I had an abusive father, and I had a baby from that at 13 years old.
What was so traumatic for me was being alone. You just sucked it up and coped with everything.
When I first came across them and I read them, I just cried, and I asked the treatment center that I was in, I want to go to that group, this group. Where's this one? And I thought, oh, that fits it for me. This is the one. Because I tried Women for Sobriety. I tried 12-step programs. I, of course, tried it on my own, right? And it just, I felt good reading these steps.
I was strung out on meth, and I turned to the 12 steps. And I saw that first one that said I'd admit powerlessness. And I went, how am I going to beat this monster? This is literally what I said. How am I going to beat this monster if I'm powerless? And when I saw in 2003 the 16 steps that was handed out in the domestic violence and chemical dependency class, there it was. There it was. I started a group, and it was awesome, but I just see the potential for revolution here.
I felt very depressed all the time, and I already had low self-worth. I went to the WELL program, and that's how I heard about the 16 steps, was through them. One day I just said, I can't do this AA stuff anymore. I can't do this. This isn't for me. This isn't going to work. And thank goodness that the 16 steps are here, because I don't know where I would have gone. I really don't know what I would have done. It's just been amazing. Absolutely amazing. When I decided that the 12-step program wasn't going to be for me, I dwelled in it for quite a long time. I started coming to the 16-step group, but I felt guilty I was told that if I didn't go to a 12-step group that I was going to go out and get drunk. And I'm going, why? Why would I do that? I don't want to. I'm on a different place. I'm in a different place right now. Where does this come from? It's almost like a magic leprechaun is going to come down and make me go out and get drunk or something if I don't go to that 12-step program. I was so afraid, and eventually I had to let it go. But the fear was unbelievable. Yeah, I didn't get drunk.
Here it says, we affirm and enjoy our intelligence, strengths, and creativity, remembering not to hide these qualities from ourselves and others. And that's huge. You know, after doing a step 5 and talking about all my stuff, and then having to focus on my character defects, well, if that isn't going to send me out, I don't know what is. So no wonder I was getting stuck on it. So this is great. I feel blessed today to actually have a program where I can affirm my intelligence. I'm an educated woman, and I raised a good boy, and rather than sit there and dwell on my alcoholism.
We accept the ups and downs of life as natural events that can be used as lessons for our growth. And that was the very first step I chose on. And when I read it, it was so empowering to me because the whole life of my recovery and my addiction are ups and downs.
Number 8, because people did harm me, you know. Yes, I did harm, but also others have harmed me. So how do I get, rid of this negative energy? And I went, that's so wonderfully put, negative energy. And I could really understand this, and this has made me feel like $1,000,000.
The second step, where we believe that our concept of God, higher power, Gaia, Mother, Father, a spiritual essence, can affirm the truth within us, or that is a part of us, or central to us, rather than I turn my will and my life over to God as I understand Him.
Step 5, we share with another person and the universe of those things inside of us for which we feel shame and guilt. And for me, being sexually abused by my father, my responsiveness to that, I was ashamed of. Working with Carrie in our group in Canada, she had a similar situation, and she shared it. And I was like, oh my God, that was okay. I didn't need to hold that shame or that guilt for all of these years.
And this one that says, step 10, we learn to trust our reality and daily affirm that we see what we see, we know what we know, and we feel what we feel. Because there's crazy making in domestic violence and crazy making in our own lives if we're doing drugs. But that right there affirms that I know what I know.
Part of doing step 11 especially was to realize that, okay, I'm not responsible for other people's shortcomings, and that brought me right out of the depression.
I'm working at a women's therapy collective, and everyone who came virtually had a trauma history of abuse or neglect or battering. Nearly all of them were in 12-step groups. And I'd sit there, and a woman came in one day very depressed, and her sponsor had told her to do a 4th and 5th step from the 12 steps. And if you don't know those, it's take a fearless, searching moral inventory, and then before God and another confess all this. And I thought, why would you tell a depressed person to do that? Depressed people can sit and tell you how rotten they feel and how bad they are from morning till night. What is the curative thing of doing that? Everything we knew about depression then and still know about depression is what? You want to get in control, in charge, and focus your life.
What I really loved about your book was that you had concrete exercises to experience and to investigate and to, again, discover and uncover how to have and bring these things into your life.
The steps invite us to love ourselves, really. It's a relationship with ourselves. And the focus is on the inside as opposed to externally looking outside of ourselves.